Welcome back to the channel. My name is Loic Lemener, founder of Opus Wealth Management. Today, we're going to explore something that gets most investors into serious trouble. And that's the habit of looking at stock prices to inform you whether something is good or a bad investment. See, we have a big problem, and that problem is us. More specifically, our caveman brains. The one that was trained for tens of thousands of years to shun danger and run towards comfort. That fight or flight response makes us do the exact opposite of what we should be doing. The object of investing is to buy low and sell high, right? Well, how do you get a low price? A price has to fall to get low, meaning to buy low requires you to buy something that just hurt you or at least has looked bad recently. And to sell high is to take the perceived comfort of something that has just made you money and say, I've had enough of this, and sell it. It's just so unnatural to us as human beings. Which brings up another deep-seated emotion. As Buffett has said, it's not fear or even greed that makes the world go round, but an even stronger emotion: envy. Nothing creates more FOMO than hanging out with people you deem to be your peers, and they're making a lot of money and you're not. We're all social animals, and FOMO is bioengineered into us for our own survival. So here's the big problem with people using investment charts or what something has done recently as the primary variable to tell them whether they like an investment or not. The problem is that good investments go up sometimes and horrible investments go up sometimes. There isn't any differentiation between the two. Even worse, some of the best investments, actually most of all the great investments, lose a lot of value at some point in time, usually at several points in time. So how can you discern anything in this madness? Well, Ray Dalio, the founder of the largest hedge fund in the world, has said the greatest mistake of the individual investor is to think a rising stock market is a good one as opposed to a more expensive one. When things are expensive, not only has the fat lady not sung, but she's standing on stilts on thin ice. I asked AI to draw me that. That's pretty creepy. Let's move on. To further my point, here are some of the most extraordinary gains of history. Who wouldn't want that? Well, because they gave you this. The Hedge Fund Man Group compiled a list of 20 or so of the great bubbles of history and found that the average loss from the peak was 71%. That means you need a 345% return just to recover. And many of these assets never did. I think it was John Templeton who said, any fool can make money. It takes a wise man to hold on to it. On the flip side of the coin, who would ever want these charts in their portfolio? The one on the left, the stock lost 94% of its value between 2000 and 2001. The stock on the right in the black line lost about 50% in an era where the NASDAQ, the blue line, was up about 100%. So 150% underperformance in a very short period of time. Well, these are two of the most solid investments I could think of. The one on the left is Amazon right before it went on its epic run. And the chart on the right is Berkshire Hathaway, who only took about 18 months to recover from that underperformance, and then the rest was gravy. Another thing I've noticed is that in every bubble, there's a group at the center of it that just happens to be at the right place at the right time. People revere these geniuses as the new great investors because they are all of a sudden killing the indexes. But unfortunately, they tend to lose it all when whatever they were experts in falls back down to earth. The difference between these people who lost everything in 2000 and say a Mark Cuban is that Cuban was smart enough to not think that tech stocks go to the moon. He realized that the value of the entire tech industry was out of whack compared to the value it could possibly produce. So he sold his company, hedged the stock that he kept, and held on to most of his wealth. So what do we do with all this madness? Well, as Alan Kay said, the proper perspective is worth 80 IQ points. And since I need all the help I can get, let's start with this. Investing isn't about guessing where some price is going over the next few years, which I don't believe anybody can do. It's about determining the value of something and then buying it at an attractive price relative to that value. It's always a comparison, a fraction with two sides, price and value. If you're only looking at the price, you feel blind because you're only looking at the duck on the water, not seeing the mad scramble below the water that creates the value. As Buffett says, price is what you pay and value is what you get. And what is that value? Well, for stocks, it's cold hard cash, right? You invest in stocks, you invest in companies with the hope of them having earnings. And with those dollars, they either give them back to you in the form of dividends or reinvest them to make even more dollars. The key, though, is that it's always a relative ratio. So if you believe that, there's a harsh truth that comes along with this concept, which is you can't possibly have an opinion on the price of a stock unless you have an opinion on its value. Something could be worth 1 cent, and if you can pay half a penny for it and do that repeatedly, it could be a great investment. Likewise, you can invest in the most dominant company to ever walk the earth, something that you think is worth $5 trillion. But if the stock market values it at $10 trillion, it could be a horrible investment. It's always a ratio. One more wrinkle is that the value of the stock is not just how much is based, not just on how much cash the company generates today, but over a long period of time. That's why valuing companies, which is what most of the great investors do, is such a difficult art form. As Yogi Berra said, predictions are difficult, especially when they're about the future. That's also why Buffett tells us that the only company you should buy is one you'd be happy to own if the stock market shut down for 10 years. Because he doesn't care about the squiggly line on the computer. What he cares about is the underlying economics and the value creation of the underlying business over a long period of time. Let me give you a test. Let's say you're a mid-career saver. Your kids are out of the house and you've got 15 years left to build your nest egg. Where do you want the stock market to go? I think most people would draw something like this, straight up and to the right. Sounds pretty nice, right? But this wouldn't be optimal. Where else do you want to pay an ever-increasing price for something that you want to buy? A much more ideal path would be something like this. This is what you want, where stocks stay cheap for as long as you're saving, and then the day you retire and you're getting ready to sell stocks, they get expensive. As Buffett asks, why is the stock market the only market where buyers want to pay a higher price? Similar to this concept, we can determine just what an oh-so-perfect investment would be. Something where we have the utmost confidence in the value, but where the price has absolutely tanked to a silly low price. That's why the greats, if they're confident in the value of a company, love to see the stock price go down. That's the opportunity to buy more at better prices. Seth Klarman, who many people consider one of the all-time greats, recently wrote this quote: "Learning to love markdowns is critical for long-term investment success." He didn't say it's important. He didn't say you have to learn to live with markdowns. He says they are critical to your investment success. So next time you look at your investment statement and see a big gain, don't get too excited. And don't despair at a loss. Remember that this is a marathon. What is black and white on your investment statement today is only a very fuzzy hint of what the value might turn into over the next 10 or 20 years. That's it. I hope you found this valuable. If you did, please consider subscribing so you don't miss more educational content. Thank you for your time.